process. Finally got to list it. Never been to this house once, keep in mind. We got 27 offers in like 3 or 4 days. Priced it super low.
Wow.
Got an offer 65 grand over asking price cash that we accepted. And that should be closing in another week or two. So that's the power of leverage and just automation, having people in place. And more importantly, having relationships in place where you get access to these off-market deals.
Welcome to the LandLife Podcast with your host, PJ Riley.
Hey guys, welcome to the LandLife Podcast. My name is PJ Riley. Like I always say, if you're getting value from this, like, subscribe, leave a comment, do me a solid there. Guys, today's guest, Chris Bello. Now stand by because I got to read this out. He's got a pretty decent size resume here. He's a real estate agent, an inventor, and he's got to tell you about that. An inventor. He runs the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. He's got like almost 300 episodes, so he's a rock star there. Super fit dude, and he's an all around nice guy. Chris, how are you? Where are you coming to us from?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, PJ. I was like, man, where'd you get this resume from? Like, did you do your research or just pull things off of LinkedIn? I'm coming at you from Denver, Colorado. It recently relocated just over a year and a half ago from Houston, Texas, where I'm actually still closing deals virtually, which we can talk about today.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned a second ago before we hit record, I've been procrastinating on getting into the Denver market because I still have existing business and clients in Houston, although I need to because the price points, they're bigger, the checks can be larger, although the deals are definitely tough to find, but they're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Denver, how long have you been in Denver?
Been here. My fiance and I moved here in March 2021, just wanted a change of scenery, sold my house in Houston. Literally, it happened very quickly. We visited in August 2020. Like, we love it here. Everyone's got dogs. There's freaking mountains in the distance. When you leave Target or anywhere you go, like, it's just beautiful. And we sold the house. I put it up. Obviously, I could list it myself. Didn't have to pay like a listing agent fee on that. And within a couple of months, we had sold it and actually moved out here. There was some logistics of like, okay, move all the stuff out of the house, get it ready for sell, stay with my parents for way longer than we would have liked. Just like, oh my God, there's too many people in this house. We all got sick at the same time with that recent virus going around. It was funny, but I mean, at the same time, it gave us a taste of like, it's kind of nice living on your own, having your own space. You kind of learn that when you're stuck in close quarters with family for a while, how nice that freedom is. And like, oh, I can just put the dogs away or the pets away and have some peace and quiet. And, you're not having people knocking on the door and, people coming in and out all the time. So, I mean, how it goes with the family and the dogs. You said downstairs, they might be barking anytime now. And that just makes us real. Like, that's what life is,
Absolutely. Have you, how much of Colorado have you explored so far?
We've really stuck out here for quite some time. I mean, we go on hikes. This weekend we went to, we're like Colorado life, all in. Nice. We went to a farmer's market. We went on a hike, and then we went to some winery for some taste testing thing, or, whatever they call that. The 20 different wines you tasted, get some food. Yeah, the wine taste testing thing. So we did all that yesterday alone with some friends that we made out here. And, we'll go on a hike. We've got kayaks. We bought bikes. We've gone biking the trails of Golden, Colorado. We've been to Pikes Peak a few times. We haven't been kind of like to Ouray or those other parts, Durango, 5-6 hours out. It's beautiful out here, though. I mean, we just love traveling and exploring. So this whole living in a new space has felt kind of like a vacation when you come from a place you've been your whole life, know?
Yeah, no, I get it. If you get a chance, we just, we spent the last week in Steamboat Springs.
I've heard good things.
Beautiful area, man. We paddleboard a lot. So we were up there paddleboarding. They have a pro rodeo. So we hit that. Cool. Alpine slides, dude. There's just, you can unpack so much stuff. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a ton of wildlife out there. There's like moose crossings and all kinds of good
That's
stuff.
Cool too, because I think we would just see snakes sometimes in Houston, like the occasional snake through the backyard. That was it. And mosquitoes, you got those too, like huge mosquitoes and roaches that fly at you. Kind of terrifying.
Definitely less bugs here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Chris, let's get a kind of the background on Chris. Like, let's go back and what led us to this point that we're at right now.
Yeah, the background that I always give people, and just like I said, the lawn guy likes to come right when we start recording the podcast.
Let him play,
doesn't pick up too much, but the background is really just I was kind of stuck in the matrix, plugged in, is what I always tell people. you never really break out because you just look around you and see what people are doing and you kind of do what your parents tell you to do. So went to like a Catholic school pre-K through 8th grade, went to a Jesuit high school that was like an all boys school. We had an all girls school right across the parking lot and some co-ed classes, but literally it was just what are most of my friends doing was kind of like how I went through life. So most of my friends from that middle school went to this Jesuit school or to that girls school. Like we kind of split ways, but we kind of kept in touch. And then from there, a lot of people went to Texas A&M or University of Texas for universities because again, we were in Texas. So applied to some schools, saw where a lot of my friends were going, went down to the Texas A&M route, picked a degree that I hated the least. Like I was literally just trying to get through
I
each
understand.
checkpoint, right? Do National Honor Society, do a couple of clubs, and then get a job. That was the next step. Career fairs, dressing up in button down shirts that didn't fit me and just feeling uncomfortable. Like I would never wear this,
Yes.
but I kept on going and I landed what I thought was a dream job, which I think many people probably listening to this can resonate before they get off into the entrepreneur path or the investor path. And it wasn't until 3.5 years in that I was just like, I felt like I didn't fit in. And did anyone else feel this way? Or was it just me? Like, did I hate coming to work every day? And like, this meeting's just like 2 hours long. Why are we even having this?
Yep.
And just
This could have been
go
an
to the
email.
cafeteria. Yeah, this could have been an email or a text or why. I don't know. It just felt weird. And then every time I would meet someone who was in a very high up position, I'd go into their office or we'd have a conversation and they'd have their little like 10 or 20 years of service thing on the wall. And I'm like, there's not much to show for it. And they seem super stressed out,
Yeah.
especially in a global company. They're talking at like 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. with people in Singapore or Latin America. They've got like different regions, some of these directors.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't know how much exactly they make, but it can't be worth this. And that's when I decided to kind of part ways and go do my own thing. I quit my job kind of cold turkey with the inventor thing that you mentioned earlier. That
Yes, I
first
want to know
foray into
about this.
entrepreneurship was like an attempt at an invention. I wouldn't say successful, but I mean, we were pretty excited about it. We have a filed patent, which is cool, but ended up obviously not sticking with that because I am in real estate now. So that kind of gives the background, just floating through life, getting a day job, feeling like, oh my God, I hate my life. How do I get out of here? Just not be in a cubicle. This was
Sure.
before COVID and remote work. Like you had to drive to work every day. Some
Yeah.
people are having to go back to that, right? And now here I am closing deals in another state, doing whatever I want. I just got back from the gym. I go at 10 or 11 a.m., like on my own routine. It's a
Yes.
very different lifestyle than what I was living a few short years ago.
So real quick, I really want to know the invention thing. Just give us the Cliff Notes version if you want. You don't
Yeah,
have to get
yeah.
too detailed into this.
Watched a little too much Shark Tank, got a little
Okay.
too excited, but a friend had a 3D printer at his house and he was kind of like my nerdy friend. He'll always figure out some really cool stuff in Excel and like crazy
Yeah.
formulas. And he was not an engineer or anything, but he got very good at printing out things, designing things. And so just we kind of got that entrepreneurial itch as I was starting to think of how do I exit my corporate life. This was probably December 2016 because I quit that job in March 2017.
Okay.
We created a supplement organizer in a way where it's almost like a blender bottle type thing, but it shaped in that manner, but it had different compartments where you could store powders or pills, pre-workout, post-workout, multiple for the gym person who drinks multiple drinks a
That's
day of
awesome.
like branched chain amino acids. And the lid pretty much turns and you can access one compartment at a time. So like if I were to turn it from compartment 1 to 2, you could pour out pre-workout from 1, BCAAs from 2 into your shaker bottle. So you'd need like 2 bottles. But yeah, we filed a patent on it. We ran into some snags when trying to do mass manufacturing because you can 3D print a lot, but the process to mass manufacture is called injection molding. And the designs are different, draft lines. We learned a lot of things along the way.
Yes.
You had to order the tooling. Injection molds are probably like $15,000 a piece, and we needed 4 of them. So we actually moved forward with ordering these things, trying to get them sent over here from China, like before all the crazy supply chain issues and inflation. Who
Yeah.
knows what those things cost now? But when they got here, they weren't quite producing the product as designed or intended. And we kind of just ran out of motivation for it, but also money because I had quit my job to pursue this thing that was not really coming to fruition anytime
Yeah.
soon. And I was just like, dude, I told my friend, I can't keep spending money on this because every time we ran into a snag, it was like $2,000. We could run a test on this. file this thing with the attorney for the patent. We just got hit with the bill to like renew the patent 3 years later. Like, hey, it's going to be $1,000 for this, I don't even know what it was, but the attorney just reached out. And I'm like, you even got to pay to like keep this thing active, or like,
Yes.
I don't even know what it was about. But yeah, it was just, I saw potential for it. We had some interest in it before we made it, but I guess the execution, that's why so many people say ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is everything. Can you
Yeah.
actually execute on your idea and vision? And I guess maybe we couldn't, or we weren't ready for it, or we just didn't have the motivation for it. We were kind of thinking about the money and not necessarily the product customer fit. So that's kind of where I think we got stuck on it.
Yeah.
It was a fun process, learned a lot. I have a patent. We've got tooling on the shelf at my buddy's parents' like business warehouse, and maybe we'll revisit it someday. But I liked to shift over to the real estate model, where how do I generate income out of nothing, pretty much? Like that's what I see with real estate: an opportunity, a lead. You can generate massive commissions or assignment fees in many cases without having to invest a whole lot of money up front.
Yeah, yeah. What I think is really interesting though is that you jumped at something. You
I
saw
took action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you took action. There was potential in
I stroked a
shaker
check for
bottles. You're
30
like,
grand, man. That was the biggest check I ever wrote.
and can you imagine doing? Yeah, exactly. As a young guy writing a $30,000 check, it's terrifying.
Not
But
for a
you did
house
it.
either.
Yeah, right. But you did it though. Whereas,
Yeah.
imagine if you had not done that and you stayed at the job, you'd still be thinking, "I can
What
make
if?
this shaker bottle business work." However
Yeah.
many, 3-4 years later,
I'd be
you'd still
stuck.
be thinking, one of these days, man, I'm going to do that shaker bottle. But
Right.
all the things you learn will help you in every other aspect of business from here on out. All the good, the highs, the lows, the failures. Hey, should I work with a partner? Should I work by myself? All these
Yeah.
different things you learned, that you're obviously not selling shaker bottles. We're talking about real estate today, but
Yeah.
you not done it, you'd still be stuck in that world, and you wouldn't have learned all those things. And I tell people a lot about. I had kind of a similar experience, kind of a similar business. We decided to put credit card readers into police cars.
Cool.
Right? Genius idea, right? Not so much. I'm going to skip to the end. There was
Didn't
a lot
really
of
pay it
issues
out.
that didn't work, but had I not done it, I would never have learned all those things that that have helped me today in business.
Right.
So let's shift to real estate.
Cool.
So you're a realtor now. You were doing it in Houston, Texas, or you're still doing it in Houston, Texas, and you're doing it in Colorado. How do you make that work?
Yeah, so I think I approach it differently. And a lot of people, it's funny because I've got wholesalers and investor flipper friends, and then I've got realtor friends, and a lot of them do one or the other. And they look down on the other for one reason or another, like, oh, those shady investors or those buttoned up realtors. They don't they're scared to do any deals, right? Or they're scared to walk into these houses that are hoarder houses or need a lot of work or have cat poop all over in one room, something like that.
Oh yeah.
Since I started off, so I guess to rewind a little bit, I had tried to invent the product, realized quickly, like, gosh, I'm going through my savings very quickly. I had a house mortgage, and I still wanted to kind of live that lifestyle I had, but I didn't have that income coming in consistently anymore. And so I decided to like join a real estate wholesaling company in Houston. At first, I wanted to do it alone. I'm like, no, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do it alone. But as I started looking into it, I had more and more questions. Okay, bandit signs. Well, what do I say when a seller calls me? What does the contract look like? How do I get them under contract? All those questions. And I realized that the shortcut was just to find mentors, and why not get like paid something to at least learn instead of going to one of these RIA events and getting sold a $50,000 mastermind package that I didn't have the money for. Right. So that was the logic behind it. But where I'm going with this is that I started off on the wholesale side. I got training and mentorship. I got to go in with sales reps and see and hear, what do they say to the seller? What do they look at in the house? How do they build rapport? Oh my gosh, 20 minutes later, they're signing the contract and they're canceling the other 2 appointments that they had that day. How do they do it? Like, whoa, that was amazing. And we're making 20 grand on this deal, So I got to see all that firsthand. And then I got my license about a year later. So where I'm going with that is that I kind of saw things from a different lens versus just going the traditional realtor route, where I've seen the hoarder houses. I've done the deals where the $32,000 assignment fee in 2 weeks, So it forced me to approach things completely differently. I also had some books that I had read, such as The 4-Hour Work Week, that really influenced my, how do I do real estate where I don't have to be stuck in the same market with my face on a shopping cart, where if I ever move, my business dies. I didn't want that to happen. And so just the way that I have built my business with the systems, the automations, the delegations enabled me to like literally get business out of state where the question never comes up. The assumption is that you're there in town or you've got people in town. I'll sometimes mention it, but sometimes it just never comes up. And it's like, hey, we'll get that listed next week. We'll get photos. They don't need to know. They might say, hey, can you stop by and check it out real quick? And I'm like, yeah, we'll have someone stop by and check it
We'll have
out.
someone stop by.
I know I'm not lying. I'm saying our team will stop by. We'll check out the property. We'll get photos. And I just had a listing go live 2 weeks ago. I was waiting because it was like a probate lead from an attorney and they had all this court stuff that they had to go through. So I thought I was going to list this thing 3-4 months ago, but they had to wait for that court process. Finally got to list it. Never been to this house once, keep in mind. We got 27 offers in like 3 or 4 days. Priced it super low. Got an offer 65 grand over asking price cash that we accepted. And that should be closing in another week or two. So that's the power of leverage and just automation, having people in place. And more importantly, having relationships in place where you get access to these off-market deals. Because how do you become that person? We talked about it before we hit record. It's so hard to find deals. Like you're competing with everyone knows a million realtors, right?
Yes.
You got to find those key relationships where they're going to source deals for you and send them to you so that you can do this where you're not competing. I don't have to send 10,000 mailers a month or anything. I just have to check in. I literally sent that person an email. Hey, do you need help selling any houses? I know I've run some comps for you. Yes, I actually do. Here's a house. I got an email back 2 days later with an address. And that was the one that I had to wait 3 months for. So I was excited. And then I'm like twiddling my thumbs, like, when is that lead coming through so I can list it?
Yeah.
But it sold so quickly. And that's going to be money in the bank within 2 to 3 week turnaround.
That's amazing. So relationships, obviously super huge. So
yeah.
Now let's say I'm a new guy and I want to do what Chris is doing and I want to travel. I want to live in California, but I'm currently in Arkansas. So
Right.
I want to do this business out of state. How do I develop those relationships? How does somebody who doesn't have any experience in this develop relationships like that?
That's a great question. And often when I tell people, I'll kind of brag about how great my systems are that I can do it out of state. But I think I also joked about that before. It's kind of like playing Halo 2 on legendary mode. Like you die every 2 seconds and it takes you so much longer than it needs to. So I don't always advise that people do this 100% out of state, at least as a real estate agent, because it is such a personal business. People want you to do it. If you're their agent, they hired you for a reason. People do a lot of that branding, like your face on the cards, your face on the billboard, right?
Sure.
So when they don't see you, they're kind of like, well, I thought I hired you, PJ or Chris. Like, why aren't you here at my house doing the open house on Sunday, right? So that's been a little bit of a challenge for me to overcome a bit. And I just kind of sell the team. But I will preface that by saying that I was in Houston. My whole network was there. I went to pre-K, high school there. A lot of my friends from college moved back to Houston and became clients of mine later down the road. It helped a lot. I don't know that I would want to start in a market that I've never been to and have no sphere at all, because getting business that way is going to be super tough, right?
Yeah.
If you can just imagine the pitch, you're calling a probate attorney asking if he can send you leads. And he's like, okay, yeah, let's meet up for lunch next week. I actually don't live there and I've never lived there and I don't know anybody there, right? It's
Yes.
going to be tough. So to answer your question, I would recommend, if at all possible, start in your local market. And even if you have plans of leaving like I did, I just wanted to try something new. I didn't want to be stuck there forever. I planted those seeds and I was in the business for a few years, developing relationships, getting referrals, getting a lot of traction and testimonials under my belt.
Yeah.
So that now I can rely on that. It's not like I'm leaving or that I left and that I have no business there. I've never done deals there. Like I know the contracts, I've got people on the ground, my network is there, and my resources, I'm getting leads off market from all the seeds that I've planted over the last few years.
Sure.
So that would be my short answer, is just, I probably wouldn't advise that you try to go into a market you've never been to, at least as a real estate agent. Now, you and I both know virtual wholesalers and investors that do it all the time, make offers over a postcard or a phone call and lock up deals sight unseen remotely. That's totally cool. But I think as a real estate agent, that is more important to at least have some kind of boots on the ground before you really heavily market. Hey, I'll help you sell in this market I've never been to. By the way, I don't have any sales. So yeah, hire me, right? Not a great pitch.
That's right. So let's switch it around then. Okay. Now you're here in Denver.
How do I do it?
You went on vacation here a few times, right? You don't know anybody here. Super competitive market. You're doing well. How did you do that? I mean, how are you able to move to a brand new market and do well?
So that is a question I think I hear most commonly for real estate agents. See it in Facebook groups. Hey, has anyone moved to a new market? How do you restart? How do you build your sphere? You got to kind of start from scratch. And it's just, again, relationships, conversations. I might be at the gym and I'll just start making friends. And again, it's like I really want to make friends, genuine friendships. I'm not trying to be that weird person who's trying to sell you on some
Here's my
pyramid
card.
scheme at the grocery store. I'm not that person who's like holding. This person approached us and was like asking weird questions and smiling, and I'm like, okay, hello, like how's it going? I'm trying to grocery shop. She only had one bag of apples, and by the time I wrapped up my store trip, she had the same bag of apples, and she was just like trying to talk to new people to find who she wanted to sell or something. And I'm like, that I don't, maybe it works, but like I'm here to get groceries,
Yeah.
not to get sold on something, right? So building real relationships, making friends. Like I was at a sports recovery place. I always tell this story. My fiance landed a job from a 10-minute conversation I had at this sports recovery place. They have hot tubs, cold tubs, leg compressions, you know, those little suction cup things,
Oh
cupping,
yeah.
I guess.
Cupping.
They have the
Yeah.
whole 9 yards. And I talked to a guy at the hot tub. We were alternating between the hot and cold therapy. He was a CPA. Cool. My fiance's in accounting. Cool. Have her text me. We're hiring. She literally landed a job like a month and a half later because of that relationship. The
Nice.
same place, the massage lady that I would go to, I overheard her talking to another person working there. Hey, I just got pre-approved. I need to move closer to town. I knew she was kind of commuting from the mountains and she wanted to live closer to Denver.
Yeah.
So super casually, we had built up rapport over me getting like 4 or 5 massages with her and talking to her, realizing she lives far away. Again, I'm not being the weird, creepy person walking around with a bag of apples like, hey, do you need to buy or sell house? Do you know anyone who does? No, no one likes that. So I kind of casually overheard as I was doing cupping with the guy she was talking to. And I brought it up like, hey, so I'm just curious, how'd you find your lender? Did you just Google them? Did you know somebody? She's like, yeah, I just found someone online. What about like real estate agent? Do you need any recommendations? I can find, I've got friends for you that I can recommend that have been in this market for 5+ years and they know it inside and out. And I
Yeah.
made an introduction, and literally that'll be a referral commission where I don't have to do the work. I don't have to know the market. I don't have to know all the little Lodi and Rhino and like all these different
Sure.
things that people know. And I'm still going to get paid a referral fee when that closes in the next 2 or 3 months, if and when something closes. But at the same time, all that I did was over here, ask her a question, make an email introduction. It took like 5 minutes. And if that deal closes, it could be like a $5,000 referral fee.
Wow. So you're out there doing things like you're at the gym, you're at the getting massage, you're at the grocery store. So I see a lot of people that would prefer to stay at home
Yeah.
and get these leads online.
Yep.
You know, I personally feel that an actual communication, a physical communication with somebody, you're going to get better relationships with them when you have
True.
a real conversation and you're really going back and forth and having a genuine, normal human conversation. However, a lot of people don't want to do that, and I understand that they're introverts; they just don't want to be out there.
Yeah.
What about online marketing of yourself? How do you incorporate online marketing?
Yeah, so our online marketing, I've got some friends that do it really well. They'll do open houses, especially just thinking with the real estate agent lens or
Yeah.
even investors. Hey, here's this house, do a walkthrough. Document, don't create. I heard Gary Vee say that. A
Okay.
lot of people, they think they need a ring light and the right podcast and the headset, and they never do it because they don't have the perfect lighting, right? But
Yeah.
just freaking put your camera on live, go to Facebook Live or record a video on your phone, like the Ty Lopez video that got millions of
Yes.
views. It was on his cell phone in his garage, right? Here in my garage. Here, check
Here's
out
my
these books,
books.
knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
you don't need a fancy setup or camera, which I think a lot of people get stuck on. And they
Mhm.
also, you said introverts, maybe you don't feel super confident or comfortable on camera. Do it 300 times and you'll feel a lot better about it. I think we talked about that before we hit record. I've released 381 podcast episodes
Yes.
since I started in 2017. And now you can create content from the comfort of your home, either inform, educate, entertain. Those are the different ways you can do it. It does help if you have some footage of a property. Like if you can do a walkthrough of a house. Hey guys, I'm in my open house. Come see me from 2 to 4 on Sunday. Check it out. Flip the camera around. You can show the kitchen. Look at this can lighting. Look at this primary bedroom. Look at the size of this, right? Or even an investor property. Oh my gosh, I'm in this investment property. Look, it's a hoarder house. I've got videos of me doing this on my Instagram archive stories where I'm like, check this out. This is after the movers came in. This lady had like 50 sticky notes from the pool guy saying like the pool has been cleaned. Like she wouldn't remove anything. And I maintained her privacy. I didn't want to like put her name or anything like that on there, but I was just showing people like, wow, this is nuts. I've never seen a house like this before. And people would reply back. They start conversations like, where is that? I'm interested. Let me know. Investors and buyers, right? That was the one we made the $32,000 assignment fee on. And it was just from documenting content. Now, if you don't want to leave the house, it gets a little more difficult. You can do cold calls. I hear people are banging the phones for 3 or 4 hours, just calling through lists using a Mojo dialer. That works too. It just depends on what are you most interested in. And it's a numbers game, right? You might have to call, I don't know, 500 people to get 10 leads, which turns into 5 appointments, which turns into 2 deals, and everyone's numbers are different.
Yeah.
But what I've been focusing on is attraction marketing. When people come to me and they schedule a call, they hear my content, they hear my podcast, I have a call to action. If you're interested in buying or selling real estate, schedule a time, go to chrisbello.com/real estate, and you can book a time with me. When someone books that with me, they already heard 500 of my episodes. Well, not even 500. I'm not there yet, but they've already heard like 10 episodes. They like what I have to say. They understand my voice. They see that I know what I'm talking about. I can't just make this stuff up. Like I am speaking the terminology in Mojo Dialer. Like these things you can't just make up if you don't know it on the fly, right? So when they are attracted to me and they schedule a time to chat, and if anyone here is listening likes to create content like that, those are going to be a lot warmer leads because they're raising their hand and choosing to work with you. You're not pissing them off on a cold call where they're like, I already got 10 of these calls this week. I'm not selling my house, right? Leave me alone.
Absolutely.
If they raise their hand and they find you and they listen to your podcast, man, I like this PJ guy. He's got some great content. I've learned some stuff. Okay, what's his website? I'm going to book a call with him. Hey, PJ, I got some land I want to sell here. Like, can you give me a quote? Like, how does the process work? You're not competing with 15 people that called that person this month because they reached out to you and they're ignoring all those other calls.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice for everyone who wants to just do this from the comfort of their home is educate people, create helpful content, build an email list, nurture your clients. It may take longer to convert than if you're just hammering through a list of potentially motivated sellers, but the leads that do reach out are going to be so much warmer and so much more pleasant to work with for the most part.
Absolutely. And they'll feel like they already know you. You know,
they already know you
so many times. Chris, I already know you. Like,
yeah, you're
we
like,
talk all the
who's
time.
this?
I respond to your podcast when I'm driving in my car. You just don't hear me.
Right.
So basically it's get out and do stuff.
Take action, create content.
Absolutely. And, get in front of people, whether it's physically in front of people or online, get a YouTube channel, just make it. Like Chris said, pick up your phone and just start videoing yourself, doing what you do every day, and you will attract people. I think it was Grant Cardone that said, if people don't know you, they're not going to do business with you.
Yes. And if you're not, the more hands you shake, the more money you make. I heard Brad Lee say that on a podcast. And I'm like, man, you got to be meeting more people, having more conversations, creating more content, which is kind of like a way to have that conversation at scale. But whenever you jump on one-on-one Zoom calls or coffee meetings, like you and I are talking right now, I've got a coffee meeting tomorrow with someone else who I connected with recently. Those little seeds that you plant, you can get so many referrals and like, hey, keep me in mind if just remind people, like, what is it that you do, right? Always in that conversation, not in a weird way, but just like, hey, do you happen to know anyone by chance who's got like any off-market properties? Whatever it is that you're looking for, insert question at the very end. And you'll be surprised at when they're like, actually, yes, I do. I'll text you the address. I'll make the introduction on a text message. And then 2 months later, you've got a deal that wouldn't have happened if you never made that connection.
So I want to help the new guy somehow with this next question. So what I always have a problem with is when I show up to something and I'm not prepared, it doesn't go well.
Yep.
If I show up prepared and I already know the questions I'm going to ask, how I'm going to start and how I'm going to end the conversation, everything goes just great. How do you prepare for meetings, for interactions with people? Do you have anything set that you would do prior to meeting with somebody?
That's a great question. And a lot of people do scripts and role play. Honestly, I've been bad about that. I don't do it very often, but for the most part, I have so many conversations. I may have had 3 or 4 podcast interviews that week. So I'm legitimately always talking to people. I'm on Zoom calls like all day. That's what I do. My job is to connect with people and add value at scale. And because of that, I'm able to go into different relationships and conversations. So for the new guy who's not doing that, or the new guy or gal, make sure to start having more conversations where you're just more comfortable at answering questions on the fly, because the conversation could go any different way. There's not like you can practice 3 questions and script lines and hope that it's the same every time. It's really pretty fluid.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did here that I've been implementing more, this is very helpful for especially new people. Sales conversations are 80% listening and like 20% asking the next right question. So it isn't even really about having a conversation. It's more about listening actively. So when you're talking to like a motivated seller, or someone who, as if you're a real estate agent and you want to find someone who's like about to sell their house, they're moving out of state. Why are you moving out of state? Just asking these questions. Like, what's your timeline to move? Any particular reason you're moving? Like, you're just tired of Texas. You just want to move back home, to the East Coast. Like, tell me a little bit more about that. And then just shut up and take notes. Maybe they just lost their job. Maybe they hate their job and they quit and they don't have a backup plan. And, you're not sure exactly what it is that they want to do, but that'll help you dive into the motivation and the why. It's not as much about the house or the property or the deal as it is about the why, because that's why people make decisions based on emotion and they justify with logic, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what you do, is just dig into that why. Like, why are you selling? Have a couple of those prompting questions and then just listen and take notes. And if you do that enough times, you're going to get better at it, where it becomes, instinct. You don't even have to practice. You're just like, hey, what's up, PJ? So I know you said you got to sell this house. Like, what's your timeline? Like, why do you want to sell it? Man, I just hate this place. I want to move. I'm tired. So much traffic. I back up to a busy street. There's always noise back there. Or I'm 2 months behind on the mortgage. Like, I shouldn't be telling people. People will start to tell you all kinds of things, and you'd be surprised. Like, wow, I just met this person, and they're telling me their whole life story.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, you may have to pry a little bit more, but that information will help you to help them to take that next best step. So your goal is to help them. Keep that in mind, and that way it's a win-win for both of you.
So sit back, ask just general
questions.
probing questions, and most people will talk. They'll just talk.
Yeah.
Let them lead the conversation.
Right. And sometimes you have to cap it. Like, if they're really, there's the disc profile. If they talk too much, you don't want to be there for 4 hours. I know people who've been like, I was talking to this sweet old lady for 4 hours. I got the deal. I'm like, that's great. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of cap it at a certain point. You can't be at every appointment for 4 hours. I mean, maybe it's worth it to you if you're going to make a $30,000 assignment fee or something.
That's different.
Right. That's
30
different.
grand a day would be pretty nice.
But sometimes you never, all you can do is track your inputs. This is also something important for the new people, because I know so many people will waste a ton of time on 4-hour appointments. It's great. You're talking to people, you're building rapport, but what if that doesn't turn into anything and you don't get any referrals out of it? That's 4 hours gone. And if you do this frequently, you're wasting a lot more time than you need to. You got to be in and out, be more effective and efficient. I'm very big on that. Like, hey, I even send booking links to friends who want to catch up. It's 30 minutes. I love you, man, but 30 minutes, that's it. You don't get an hour. Like, I got other calls I got to jump on, right? It depends on the relationship, but especially with like prospects and stuff, you want to help them, and you also want to be respectful of their time while being mindful of yours. So hopefully that's another tip.
As a new person though, and I kind of want to ask you this. I don't want to get too far off topic, but how do you close a conversation? Let's say you're talking to someone and she's telling you about her great grandkids' dogs, and it just keeps going. They're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, Sparky sounds like a great dog.
Can you do it here? Yeah, let's go. Let's get this deal done.
You have a set thing you say, or something you would, any advice you would give to somebody that would want to shut a conversation down?
Yes, I always put the blame on appointments. So whether my appointment is a massage or a workout, they don't need to know if it's a doctor's appointment, another client, or I'm just getting a massage, or like the cupping thing at the sports recovery place. Like, hey, I've cut people off who talk quite a bit very nicely. Like, hey, I'm loving this conversation. I actually have another appointment I got to run to that starts in about 20 minutes. Keep in mind, where are you? How long is it going to take to get there? And I don't know if I'd feel great about lying about an appointment. Like, hey, I got an appointment in 30 minutes when you got nothing the rest of the day. Yeah. But you might just say, hey, I've got a lot of stuff I got to catch up on. I've got to fire off some emails. I've got to return a few phone calls. Do you mind if we pick up this conversation at a later time if you have any questions? But in the meantime, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to send you an email. You're going to have everything via DocuSign or Loop, whatever system that you use. Review it, sign it, let me know if you have questions. Sometimes people try to get the sale or something on paper. Like, here's the contract, here's the offer for your house, or here's the listing agreement, sign here and here. If you can do that, awesome. I don't like to print out stuff and bring papers. So ideally, I just do everything electronically.
Okay.
And again, if you can do it while you're there in person, that's great. But if you're running short on time and they've been talking a lot and they're not ready to make that decision, just let them know the next steps. I will call you at 5 p.m. tonight. We can review that document together. You can sign it electronically. Just tell them what you're going to do and that you've got another appointment. Blame that. You can escape. Because, I mean, if it's a sweet old lady, you got to take 4 hours to close, then it kind of is what it is. If you don't have 4 hours, you either sit there and cancel all your appointments and hope that you get the deal, or you have to cut it short and move on. Does that kind of make sense? It really just depends, case by case basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just looking for like a little strategy or a little tidbit. The new guy could be like,
I got an appointment.
I go out every day and I talk to people. I just don't know how to stop talking. I don't know how to end this conversation. But if they can even have one strategy, I mean, it can speed up their progress by quite a bit.
Exactly. I would just blame everything on the appointment. Like, hey, I'm loving this conversation. I wish I had more time to chat with you. I've got to run to another appointment. Did you want to go ahead and get this done? Like, try to close. And if you have more time, that's better. You may want to have that time to close appropriately and get them to sign right then and there. Because you also don't want that you leave and 2 hours later they talk to someone else and they're not sure. I see people lose deals all the time. That $32,000 assignment fee I told you about, there was another investor leaving when I was getting there and he did not close the deal. I'm like, what? This was a screaming deal. Why did he not do this? And I ran my numbers and I'm like, this is a freaking home run. The number that she wants, we can do, and we're going to make, 30 plus grand. So try to close the deal if you can. If not, make sure to do it as soon as possible, because until you have something locked on paper, you really don't have anything. You just had a great conversation.
Yeah. Chris, Take Action Bello. That's going to be your new wrestling name. If you become a professional fighter, take action.
My tagline on my podcast is less dreaming, more doing. So
really, that's perfect.
Yeah. I haven't said it in a while, but that's been my mantra since I started the show. Like, stop talking about it, just start doing it. And sometimes I write the check too fast, like with the invention product, but I'm like on idea 5 by the time the first person's brainstorming their perfect idea that they haven't put out into the world.
Absolutely.
You got to be like that.
Yeah, and if you'd never done idea 1, you'd never be at idea 5 or 2 or 3.
Right. You got to iteration. And when you get used to failure, even with sales, calling people, getting rejected, cool. It's just how many no's does it take to get a yes? You get more comfortable with the idea of failure, and it's just a little bit of a slowdown on your path to get to the next goal, right? It's a mindset.
Awesome. That is great. Guys, get out there and start taking action. Even if you don't have you don't know how to make a podcast, make a video of you talking about whatever it is you do. Put it on YouTube. It's going to take some time. You're not going to get to, Chris is at 282 episodes right now. That's you didn't just start yesterday.
It takes time.
It takes time, but stick with it. Be consistent. Chris, anything else you want to say?
Man, I love that idea. Less dreaming, more doing. Just start taking more action daily. And, you don't want to be analysis paralysis person who's just sitting on the sidelines trying to get the perfect plan, because the lights are never going to all be green. There's never going to be like, this is the path. You kind of got to figure it out as you go. Now, there's great mentors like you and I that people can bounce ideas off of or reach out to if they want more of a blueprint. So yeah, find a right mentor that you resonate with, if that at all. But I mean, stay focused too, because don't read 10 books at the same time. Reading a book on this and that, you need just in time, not just in case learning. That took me like so much time to figure out, because I was wholesaling, flipping, real estate agent. Like, you can get distracted even within real estate. So stay focused, pick a plan, stick to the plan, and take massive action. Thank you, PJ, for your time. I really appreciated this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, how can people get hold of you?
ChrisBello.com, B as in boy, ELLO.com, or ChrisBello_ is my Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And I'd be happy to connect with anyone. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and shoot me a DM.
Awesome. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Chris, here's the big question. Here's how we finish every podcast. This is the big one. I hope you're prepared. If you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
That's a great question. And funny enough, I was just having this conversation with my fiance recently. It would be really cool. We visited a few places, Greece and Indonesia. We really loved Bali, and apparently it was so cheap there. Everything's super affordable. You can do anything you want, eat all the food that you want for a fraction of what it would cost in like the US and, Colorado, for example. So we'd love the idea of possibly buying some land out there and living near the beach and having a surfboard. We've got kayaks and bikes here, but why not live near the beach and go surfing too every now and then? So I think someplace like that would be really cool to just have some kind of international escape to go to once or twice a year, live there a few months out of the year.
Absolutely. And the way you're working, man, you're gonna have a private jet here soon, and
We'll be flying out there for lunch. Yeah.
a little airstrip out there. You can fly me out there too.
That'd be great.
I'll take
Private
your
island. Yeah. Yeah. We could all take my plane, fly out there at once,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, PJ.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
guys. Till next time on Land Life. Take care.